our next panel. First, it's Joe Pisapia. Joe, how you doing, man?
My man Nick, what's going on, brother? How you doing?
I'm just excited for you. You got this Fantasy Pros gig now. This is fantastic.
I did. You could say you knew me when I'm the same guy. I mean, come on. I mean, who would ever want to try to change this? And I just want to tell and thank everybody already who's donated. This is fantastic. I love that you're doing this. You know, at the Black Book, we do St. Jude's charity every year. I know for TGFBI coming up next week, we're going to be raising some money there for Mason's charity for TGFBI. So I think anything that we can always do in the fantasy industry, obviously, we know Scott Fish does so much too. I think it's great. Let's help people. Let's do some good. Let's win some people some leagues. You listen to PitchCon, you win money. You take a little piece of that money you won from last year, you roll it over into some charity this year. I mean, come on. That's what it's all about, right?
See, you know how to do this. You know how to sell this way better than I do, Joe. No, but really, thanks so much for being here. And yeah, you donated one of your editions of the Fantasy Black Book as well. We already hit that one, so fantastic. Good luck to everybody. We'll be doing that, the raffling off during the closing ceremonies on Sunday at 10 p.m. Eastern Time. So definitely stick around for that. And if you haven't signed up yet, well, it's inside of the link below. Go.rallyup.com/PitchCon. It's free to sign up. You just got to select what prizes you want, fill out the basic information, and you'll be entered into all of those prizes on Sunday if we raise $10,000. So hopefully we can get there. We need your help to do so. But I'm going to keep bringing in more people here. We have Ian Kahn. What's going on, Ian?
Hey, Nick. How are you? Hi, Joe. Good to see you.
What's up, brother? How are you?
I'm well, thanks. Good to see you.
I'm just super happy that you decided to wear your Yankee hat again today. And that's what's matter. I mean, it's the most represented team so far, I think, during PitchCon. And that's a great thing.
I live in the Bronx. What can you do?
Right, there we go. Oh, beautiful. But yeah, thanks so much for being here for PitchCon. And obviously, I mean, I think you put down what you wanted to talk about. It was just Dynasty. I was like, yes, that's what I want Ian Kahn here for. So I'm happy that we're here to talk prospects. I don't really know anything about prospects. I just kind of rely on you guys for this. So I'm personally excited for this panel.
I love honesty. There's not enough honesty in the. I was like, I don't know much about that one player.
I don't.
I mean, when's the last time you ever heard somebody say that? I love that. That's why I love.
I don't. I just look. Once I become a major league pitcher, then I do my gift breakdown. It's like a first experience I have with them, and that's all that matters, right? Who cares about before times? Like this is now. This is when it matters. I don't care. You guys do amazing work for that and help us all out. But next is Shelly Verougstraete. Oh man, you got to counteract the Yankees, don't you?
Of course. I mean, I gotta just battle the hats here.
Yo, Shelly. I always tip I have my headphones above, but I would tip my hat to you, Shelly. You know, I'm a huge fan.
Yeah, of course. You guys know Shelly from pretty much everywhere. Actually, I think when you signed up for this, you put "I've been everywhere" inside of your affiliations, which I thought was amazing. So don't worry. I appreciate it.
I was hoping it was going to give you a little chuckle there.
Oh, absolutely did. Oh man. I mean, do you want to list off all the places that we can find your work?
Yeah, it's at Pitcher List, it's at Dynasty Guru, it's at Rotographs, it's at Prospects 365. I've just been everywhere.
It's a wonderful song and very fitting for you. I'm glad that you're here today. All right, next up is Eric Cross.
What's up, everybody? I don't got a hat, but I got a Red Sox deflated basketball.
Eric Cross should never wear a hat. Have you seen the hair game that Eric Cross brings to social media on a regular basis? Let's be honest here, folks. No hat. In fact, if you had a hat, I would tell you to take it off. Otherwise, I wouldn't continue to do the show with you.
I have a 2004 Red Sox World Series championship hat. I don't wear it because obviously I don't cover up my hair, but it's here somewhere in my room. I just couldn't find it in time. But I found a deflated basketball with the Red Sox logo on it that my son plays with. So
basketball.
That is weird.
I don't know where it came from. I have no idea where that came from. My son plays with it. It's in my room right now, so I went with that.
He's got a Celtics bat too. It's a whole weird thing at Eric's house. Everything's just bizarre.
Cross sport,
Cross sports. I see what you did there. Well done. Nice dad joke.
Fantrax, amazing work there. You have your 5-Tool podcast as well, so definitely give that a listen. But yeah, Eric, it wouldn't feel right not having you as a part of this panel. So glad you can make it.
Thanks for having me.
And lastly, we don't have a Red Sox or a Yankee fan in Travis Sherer. How you doing, Travis?
Pretty good. Representing the East Coast or West Coast over here. Everybody's got hats and stuff. I was gonna break out a Ken Griffey Jr. candy bar, but I can't find it anymore.
Oh man, I love that. That's great. Travis, you'll know him as part of our Dynasty team here at Pitcher List, putting out hot takes all the time. No. But yeah, this is going to be a fantastic panel, guys. I'm excited to have you all here. Thanks for being a part of PitchCon. And remember, everybody, go to go.rallyup.com/PitchCon. We're aiming to get to 7,000 today, so we can get to that 10,000 goal by tomorrow night. We have 12 hours of live streaming content. I'm going to go now. Excited for this panel. Thanks for all being here.
Oh, thanks, Nick. Great stuff there. Again, like Nick said, I mean, we're doing this for a good cause, so make sure you go hit that cause up if you're watching today. And we're going to talk about the prospects. We're going to talk about Dynasty. We're going to talk about even redraft prospects and how you're going to basically approach them in what is basically uncharted territory. We're in the 2021 season after a year of no minor league baseball. This has never happened. I love that because everybody likes to use the word unprecedented. It gets used too much. I can use it appropriately today. Unprecedented is where we're at. So I want to start there with everybody because I think none of us really have an answer for this question. I don't think you need to have a specific answer, but I think you have to have at least an impression of how 2020 is going to affect prospects who didn't have development, most specifically the pitchers too, because when the pitchers aren't able to continue to build up that inning stamina, which is so crucial for them getting to that threshold to get to the major leagues. Let's start with you, Ian. How do you think last year affected? We'll continue to go around. We'll go through Ian, Shelly, and then Travis and Eric will kind of go through box to box here and bring it back. So, Ian, starting with you, how do you think that's going to impact many of these players, these young minor leaguers who really basically did not have a season last year?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's going to have an effect, of course. I also think there was a weird. I went down a rabbit hole of Arizona Diamondbacks prospects. I guess it was a couple of weeks ago. I was looking into the outfield prospects there with Alec Thomas and Corbin Carroll, and I watched. And Johnny Gomes was their coach at the alternate site, and they were working their tails off. And they were working in every aspect of the game. They were developing. It was like they were off in private school or like getting privately tutored. So I think for the players that were high enough on the guys who I think are, the guys who were at the alternate site, I think in some ways their development, though not ordinary or the same way that you would expect people normally. But I remember watching Pavin Smith said something because he was mentioned on this. He said that what he got to do for like 2 weeks was really mess with his swing in a way that if the season was going on, he couldn't have done it because like he can't change mid swing. Like you can't change mid season that way. So it was just a real work session. It was a full training session. So there may be more upside for some. Of course, if you didn't make the top 60, then you're staying home and you're playing at your high school. So I think for those players, it's going to be an enormous change. But I'm curious to see like what happens with Nolan Gorman. I heard some reports out of there. I'll talk about him later on one of the questions that Eric brought up, that, there's maybe some other kind of development that's unexpected. That'd be
all right. Shelly, how about you? Talk to me about what your impact thoughts are of last year into this season.
Yeah, just like Ian said, like the guys who actually got to, train at the alternate site, got some time at fall instructs. I don't think that their development is going to be hindered so much because, they got more one-on-one time with coaches. They could work on things. The guys that didn't get, the invite, for the Red Sox, I think Thad Ward didn't get an invite. And I remember reading an article that, he was kind of bummed about it, but he had to just like go to the gym and his training and do his training all by himself. So I do think that it's definitely for the guys who didn't get an invite, it might kind of hinder them a bit, but maybe it gave them a drive to compete more, get better. So it's going to be a really crazy season.
Travis, what about from the pitching angle? Your thoughts about those guys that really didn't log the number of innings, basically, especially the guys who are in that, rookie ball, high A kind of level?
I actually kind of think that some of the, especially if we're talking about solely people who are guys who made the alternate site, I think guys that are in the single A level and high A level especially are actually they might see a little bit of bump, I think, in their development because they're actually then playing against competition that they wouldn't have been playing against ordinarily. When you talk about most of them being AA and AAA guys being in that alternate site. I think that the guys that are at the higher levels, they're basically seeing the same people over and over again that they saw the year before. I think that that's going to be that might actually make it a little bit more difficult for them when it comes time for them to be brought back up.
Eric, your thoughts?
Yeah, I don't really got much to add here, but kind of going along the lines with the players that didn't get the invites, that kind of every year we have a bunch of those pop-up prospects that kind of come out of nowhere, the late round draft picks, the ones that didn't have a lot of pub around them. And, we didn't get that last year from the guys that weren't at the alt site. And I remember back early in the pandemic, like we're talking April or so, right when it was really ramping up, on 5-Tool, we interviewed Cody Hosey and Shane Boz, so one hitter and one pitcher. And this was before even the guys that got the invites to the alt site, that didn't start happening until probably right around halfway through a normal minor league season. So those first few months, March, April, May, when you're really ramping up your activity, it was kind of like, what do we do? I was talking like Cody Hosey, and he raved about the Dodger system. Like, both of them were kind of just at their home areas, their home gyms, ballparks, whatever, where they grow up and trying to get work in that way. So it definitely did affect them, but I wonder what pop-up prospects we could have had,
right?
That we'd all be raving about and trying to pick up in dynasty leagues right now that didn't get that chance.
I'm glad you brought that up, because that was the biggest one for me, because when you're in deeper leagues in dynasty formats too, and you have the rookie drafts or things like that happen, yes, of course, you always have the first year player draft that's filtering new talent. But what you're talking about is so crucial. You're getting names that pop that you're not usually used to hearing about, or guys that were kind of on the fringe who've now kind of pushed themselves up. And all of a sudden, maybe they weren't owned on a specific team in your league. And now all of a sudden you don't have that. And I agree. And I think that in a way might put some artificial stress potentially on this rookie draft class of last year, which was a shorter class to begin with anyway, because of the changes to the draft. Before we get to specific names, and I know everybody wants to talk about the specific names, everybody's listening, and I promise you we'll get to that. I want to talk about prospects in redraft versus dynasty, because obviously the way that baseball's trended in the last few years, you're getting such great instruction at younger levels, whether it be in the academies in the places like Dominican, Puerto Rico, whether it be in college baseball, whether it even be high school and some other programs. You're getting just a higher level of instruction. And Ian, when you're seeing that, obviously in redraft, we've seen these kids come up at 20 years old, 21, 22, and look like near finished products. And I know we're kind of getting spoiled with that, but is that something even in 2021, you are still looking for that trend to continue? Are you still in redrafts being very, I would say, aggressive on prospects, or are you somebody that's maybe backing off a little bit this particular year, depending upon the player pool?
I'm rarely aggressive on prospects in redraft.
Okay.
It's very rare that I'm going to want to have that fun. I think it's fun to have the hot new,
sure,
ticket. But in redrafts, it's largely, I guess, it's not something that I'm looking to do, because there are very few Jose Fernandezes, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's the one that kind of back in the day, I remember it's like, wow, guy came up, just a different world of talent. So there's always, if you look at NFBC 50 rounders, right, which is a good way I think about redraft. There's industry leagues, but that 50 rounder is pretty key. Like, it's super fun to go reach for the hot young ticket, but I try to have more discipline in that game in the redraft world. And
how about you, Shelly? When you're looking at that, are you willing to maybe push a little bit more, like a round ahead for certain prospects? Like, for instance, where there's opportunity this year where, let's say, Seattle with Kalenic and with Rodriguez, where they're starting to turn the page, and you've seen how the White Sox have been so aggressive, even giving their guys contracts as rookies, and you kind of know the commitment to Eloy Jimenez and Robert. We've seen what that change has happened. Does that impact how you are approaching prospects in redraft?
Not really. I'm just like Ian. I typically try to stay away from the prospects. I mean, I know I'm in a couple of like redraft leagues, and I'll like tweet out like my roster or whatever, and like people would be like, "Well, where's all the prospects? You're the dynasty person." I'm like, "Well, I actually want some production that I know I can count on." And I'm like, yeah, I mean, I like the new shiny toy as well, but I also want to win.
Yeah, well, I think it's great to hear all of this panel say this sort of stuff. And Travis, I don't know if you're going to reiterate that same thing, but for people who cover dynasty and cover prospects, that separation of, don't let the sexy new toy, as it were, kind of necessarily impact the proven talent that's still remaining on the board. It's okay to take chances. Are you somebody that's looking for those bonus guys? Are there a couple that you have stashed away late? Because we do know, especially, I mean, you could look at Alvarez too, a couple years ago. There's guys that come up, they make that impact. And a lot of times in that second half of seasons too, where you used to be able to just put them on watch list, Travis, but now it's more about you kind of almost have to draft and stash them. Do you feel that sort of pressure, or you just kind of ignore it? And if it makes its way onto your roster, fine.
I'm more toward the latter on that. Yeah, I think that I will certainly maybe pay a little bit extra for a guy that I know is actually going to have a spot on a major league roster. That's a little bit different, I think, than if we're talking about very young guys. I mean, like I don't think anybody would have actually thought that Juan Soto would have came in and been that great that right away, right? Like it's just not something that happens very often. I mean, generally that's like a 1 in 10 year thing. It just happened to have happened a couple of times this last couple of years. To plan on that seems like you're just opening yourself up to a lot of disappointment.
Well, Eric, speaking of that disappointment, there's a guy like Gavin Lux last year who a lot of people were very strong on in terms of ADP, right? That was kind of a no-brainer, and that, let's be honest, did not work out. In fact, many people were shocked when they came back that they sent him back to minor league camp, right? People couldn't believe it. So this year you have the Wander Francos, you have the guys I mentioned earlier in Seattle. Do you think even that top 5 group this year is impactful into this redraft class?
To a degree, yes. And Travis kind of led me into what I was about to say is we've been spoiled recently with the Tatisas, the Sotos, the Acuñas, and the fact that a lot of the top draftees this year are all under the age of 25. But these types of guys, we got to remember, are the exceptions to the rule. They shouldn't be the expectation. We shouldn't expect every prospect to come up and dominate. And that bit me in the past too. You know, I used to be one that drafted a lot of prospects, and it really just bit me. So I've been trying to go more of the safer route, you know, trying to get guys that I know will have spots. And I'm not saying avoid prospects altogether, because I think sprinkling in some high upside throughout your draft is a good thing. But I'm not, going to do a top 200 pick on Jarred Kelenic, even though I might be the biggest Jarred Kelenic person around. But, it's all about the value. Like I'd rather go get like an Andrew Vaughn much later, an Alex Kirilloff much later. But sprinkling these guys later are definitely a good thing to do. You need some upside, in the middle of all that, the core and the safety you have on your roster. But definitely it's risky to try to reach for these guys. Even I know everyone wants to. I know everyone wants Jarred Kelenic on their team, but you got to find the right value.
Yeah, they almost become more interesting trade targets than draft targets. And I think that's something to keep in mind out there. And you've seen it in the NFL kind of happen too with some rookies. And I feel like the same things kind of happen in Major League Baseball, where there's so much pressure to have the next Juan Soto or have the next whoever that might be, that you see inflated ADP based off that. So I hope everybody's listening, because these are the people that talk more dynasty out there than almost anybody else. They know what they're talking about, and they're kind of warning you a little bit. Just be cautious when you're going into your 2021 redrafts. All right, so let's switch gears here to what everybody wants to talk about, the names. So we're going to talk about a hitting prospect first and go around the room here. Ian, we'll start with you. Who is your must-have hitting prospect of 2021?
Well, kind of based on what I just said, there's less of a must need on any prospects. I think the best time to take prospects is really late, and in a draft and stash, it's concerning, frankly. I mean, look at Joe Adell. People were drafting Joe Adell last year.
Great example.
But in 50, again, the 50 draft and hold NFBC in that 35 round to 45 round, that area is a really good place to look for the pop-up guys who then can help you as the season goes on, because they may be coming up and you're not spending immense draft capital. It sounds like we're talking about the finance world. But for me,
that's my team name, by the way, Immense Draft Capital. I just want you to know. I'm going to use that now.
Good name. It's all yours. The Randy Arozarena, like when I first was thinking about the question that Eric posed, was like, well, Arozarena is the guy who's going to probably play the most. However, Arozarena is going to cost you the most draft capital. The guy who I have, I think Eric just mentioned, and it's because of what Rick Hahn just said a couple of days ago. It looks like, and because of Jerry Reinsdorf, if you look at the history of Jerry Reinsdorf with Chicago Bulls and then with Chicago White Sox, so, locking in Scottie Pippen, locking in Louis Robert, locking in all these players. If Andrew Vaughn gets locked into that DH first base slot, I think that, and he's going in the 220s, like that's an avenue with that bat.
Well, let me rephrase too, so we can get maybe hyper focused. Let's say it's a first year dynasty draft. Who is your one go-to guy? Because I think that
that's a
good
question.
I think, and then if you need more time to think about it, I'll jump ahead. But I think in those startups where people want to be a little aggressive and saying, okay, I want to build my team around. Yeah, I'm like the first round's going to look like the Tatises and Juan Sotos and those guys. Is there a guy for you if you were in a first year where you're like, that's my dude? I'm going to go make sure I'm aggressive on this hitter.
I mean, I'm not gonna,
and it might be Andrew Vaughn. I'm very well.
No, it's not. I mean, if we're talking about dynasty, you're basically it's a similar question to one that's later, which is who is the biggest upside bat, or who's the biggest upside prospect that you think is going to make the biggest jump. And I don't have to spend in the second, third round for this player, or even fourth, fifth round. But if I'm not getting CJ Abrams, I'm not being true to myself.
Well, that's fair. It's stunning that he wasn't moved in any of those deals. I still can't. Not
stunning at all. Because
you don't think so?
No, not a bit. Because you see that hat that Shelly's wearing?
Yes, I do.
I was talking to Ralph Lifshitz, and I was like, come on, let's comp this. What is the comp? And you know what the comp is for me?
What?
Mookie Betts.
Wow, that's
more Mookie Betts.
Well, and people forget Mookie Betts started out as an infielder and moved to center field. A lot of people forget that.
San Diego Padres did it the right way. They did not move Mackenzie Gore. They did not move CJ Abrams.
They did it the right way. I'm more stunned that the other teams didn't demand somebody like that. Shelly, how about for you? First year startup dynasty. Who is that one hitting prospect that you are, let's say, a little bit more aggressive on, that you want to make sure that if it's an auction, if it's a snake draft, that you want this person on your roster?
I guess for me, in a first year dynasty, if I'm not going to go kind of like players that are like close to the majors, like a Dylan Carlson or Randy Arozarena, I kind of go younger and shortstop. So Marco Luciano, I'm like really, really high on him. I don't know if he's going to stay on shortstop. He might move over to third, but that doesn't matter. The dude can hit. I've been watching some video on him on YouTube, and it's just that sound off the bat, it's just like bam, just pop, and it's just like, oh, okay. I like that. So that I definitely try to target more of the center field players who can hit.
All right, down to you, Travis. What do you think about in terms of that hitting prospect name that you think is worth your number one sort of pick if you're going in a new startup dynasty league that you want to make sure you have?
Generally with dynasty drafts, I like to throw away the first year. That means that I pick prospects that are roughly about a year to year and a half away. And with that in mind, I'd say Spencer Torkelson would be my top guy. I think that there are people who think that he might come up this year, but I don't really think that's possible, especially if they're actually true to trying to make him be a third baseman. And with that said, generally people, I think, undervalue how quickly that year goes when it comes to a prospect, and that's kind of the sweet spot for getting a little bit of extra value on your draft capital, Ian, as you would say.
Yeah.
Eric Cross, who's the hitter for you?
I know the answer to this one.
I'm not saying Jared Kelenic. I'm not going to say it. That's the easy choice, and I would definitely try to get him in all my drafts. But I'm going to go a little further down my ranks here, and a guy that's really shooting up my ranks, almost top 10 now. That's Corbin Carroll. He's a guy that's about a couple years away, and he just falls into one of those. I was going to go C.J. Abrams, so Ian, love that pick. I love C.J. Abrams, and Corbin Carroll has a lot of similarities to C.J. Abrams, but doesn't quite have as much like hype around him. The price tag isn't quite as high, so you can get him a little later. Plus hit tool, elite speed, power was trending up at the alt site last year. There's a there's a high floor with him, a lot of safety with him because of that hit tool. Doesn't strike out a lot, very fluid swing. So that elite speed, he could be a 30, 35, maybe even push 40 steal guy if they let him run. And so that's got a lot of value, especially in today's game where speed's kind of on the decline a little bit, not as much of the 40 steal guys anymore. And if that power ticks up, where he could be six hit, 5 power, 7 speed, that's basically CJ Abrams' profile that you can get, a few rounds later in your draft.
Oh, look at the look, Ian Kahn. It looks good. Kill. Ian Kahn, like, that was that Robert De Niro. I don't know about that. It's a little much.
No, the only the tools.
CJ Abrams. It's a little much.
I got Corbin Carroll. Super. I was watching film on Corbin Carroll. I love the kid, love him, and I love where Eric has him. I just have Abrams. The tools. I have the 8s. I have 8 on the speed. I mean, I just think his upside is just and his makeup. But it's fun to hear about Torkelson and Luciano and watch the kind of joy in everybody's eyes talking about the prospects.
Well, that's what it is, right? And everybody has their, you guys all do your research, and you could tell when people dig into the video, they dig into the numbers, they find these certain guys. They're like, yep, that's the guy, that's the one, and they get very excited about them. And I think it's great that you talked about Abrams too, because I'm sure some people will look and get sort of frustrated and saying, well, where is he going to end up? Like, he can't play shortstop now, he can't play third base. And again, going back to the Mookie Betts thing, if you hit, they're going to find a place for you. They're going to figure it out. He went to center field or right field. The rest is history, right? For Mookie Betts. So I wouldn't worry too much about it and let that sort of inform you. Let's start at the back end again. Let's start with Eric Cross and the pitcher, and we'll go around the other way around the diamond. So Eric Cross, give me the pitcher, the must-have pitcher for you. First year startup dynasty draft. And again, pitching a little bit more difficult there, in terms of now stamina and innings build up and things like that and investments. But let's say that, it's finally that time in that draft where you feel comfortable. Who's that one arm that you're hoping is on the board?
Nate Pearson for me. I saw him a couple of times live, and it kind of backed up everything I'd seen on video of him prior. He's got that elite fastball. We saw him go toe-to-toe and pitch just as well as Max Scherzer in his MLB debut. Obviously, the rest of his outings after that didn't go quite as swimmingly, but this guy has the chance to be an absolute stud. High strikeout upside with that fastball. He has that, can touch triple digits with ease. And that slider, which is 70 grade slider for me, it kind of what pushes it up to 70 grade is the fact that not only can he kind of bury it below the zone, get the swing and miss, but he can also land that for strikes. He lands that for strikes pretty frequently, which makes the hitters respect it that much more when they can't just lay off it, because he can just drop it in that thigh high for the strike. So also has a curve and a change, which are solid pitches as well, not quite as advanced as those two, but the fact that people kind of knock him for the injuries, but there hasn't really been a lot of injuries with him that concern me long term. Like he had that one comebacker that broke his forearm. That's a fluke thing. You can't really go off of that. But the fact that he's going to have a lot of strikeout potential, should keep the ratios in check, at least to low to mid 3 ERA or so in that general ballpark. Maybe even better if everything clicks for him. And the fact that there's not as many of those 200 plus inning guys now, kind of that area is more like 160 to 180, which I think he could definitely get to with those elite strikeouts. I think he's going to be a very, very good pitcher for a long time.
All right. So Nate Pearson is his pick. Travis, who you got?
So I missed it. Are we talking about Dynasty League first?
Still Dynasty. Still doing that same thing. Start up your first year Dynasty where you're trying to kind of build your future rotation. Yeah. Who is the ace of that future rotation in your mind?
I'm torn on this one between Grayson Rodriguez and Hunter Green. I like both those guys. I think that Hunter Green is really undervalued right now, just because we haven't seen a lot of him and because of the injury that he's coming back from. But the velocity's back already, and he's throwing. And I just think he's too much of a great athlete to not figure out exactly how to mix in his different pitches and to get a more consistent delivery.
Shelly, how about you? Who's that pitcher that's number one on your prospect board that you just must have in that first year Dynasty startup?
Yeah, I definitely like that Grayson Rodriguez pick there. He's starting to work on another pitch, which is really exciting. I guess my guy is probably going to be Matt Manning. I know that he kind of missed some time with a forearm thing, so I'm having my fingers crossed that nothing happens there. He has never had any injuries prior to last year, so take that with a grain of salt. But I was at a AA game, and Matt Manning was on the mound. I had just seen Casey Mize the day before. That's who I was going for, but I was like, I'll just stick around and watch Matt Manning. I fell in love with that dude that day. His mound presence, like he was there. He was just mowing through guys. And I just nothing, even if a hit got through the infield, he just, okay. And then just struck the next guy out. I fell in love with the dude. So that's definitely a guy who I definitely try to target in Dynasty.
The intangibles of pitching are far too often not discussed. And I like that. I think that's a great point that Shelly brings up, because, it's stuff that's not going to show up in the box score. It's going to show up there when you're watching, doing the eye test, and that does matter. And mound presence does matter. Ian Kahn, how about you? Who's that one pitcher that's number one on your list in terms of long-term upside?
Gotcha. What I'm going to do, I'm going to answer that question, but I'm going to make a point about it first. And I like Travis. Every time I do my first year player in the first year Dynasty, I never play for the first year ever. I'm always buying for the future. So the answer to my question is I'm not buying a pitcher, because I'm going the first 20 rounds and I'm only buying young bats. I'm buying young bats from the jump. So if I have the Brett Sarah and I share a dynasty team we did last year, we started with Acuna at 1, then we got Eloy at 30, and then we're prospects and just 18 prospects straight. And we got 18. If you look at the list now, we have 18 of the top 20 prospects in baseball, which provides us now the capital to make moves for the course of the next forever. So just in terms of the question, if there's a pitcher that I like probably a little bit more than most people, a guy I like is Daniel Lynch. I kind of like Daniel Lynch. And I think that there's upside there. And also he's cheaper. So if I get down to the 20th round and I'm through I'm telling you, we got Corbin Carroll in the 16th round last year. We got CJ Abrams in the 8th round last year in a first year dynasty draft. And that's how I play the game. So, but Daniel Lynch for me is a pitcher.
It's a great question. And it's a great, thing to bring up here too, because I don't know if there's data on this, but what's the average in your mind length that dynasty leagues last? Is it somewhere around 5 or 6 years typically, do you think? Or do you think it is longer? I mean, I've been in one that was over 10 years. That was a very long one. But typically speaking, do you think that there's any peril, Ian, in doing what you did? Because if it only lasts 3 or 4 years, you never get to, be at the top and fly that flag. And you're always looking for the future instead of living in the now. I'm just putting that out there as a question.
I'll tell you. Fair question. Very fair question. I always plan to play in dynasty leagues for as long as that dynasty league is going to be around. I expect it to be around for 10, 20 years. And if you're playing with good players, that's going to grow and that's going to build. But if you don't play in year 1, even if you go this route, you can compete in year 1. You can win
because of the capital you have too, also to make those moves.
What happens on April 15th is all the teams that are playing for the first year, because you have 15 teams, you've got 13 of them who are trying to win that first year, and maybe one who is kind of splitting the difference, and then one who's doing what I'm doing. Then you get to April 15th, they have a few injuries, and you call the team up, you say, look, you're not going to win. They go, no, I'm not going to win. And in dynasty leagues, what you need to do is you need to have a point of view. You need to have a direction. So then you can sell the bottom of your list, 3 guys at the bottom of your list who are top 25 hitting prospects for 3 players for their second, third, and fourth round picks. And then all of a sudden you can build a team and compete in year 1 and certainly win in year 2. That's
now things always become way more complicated too in the auction versions of these leagues where you have contracts and escalators and minor league player. So this is all, everybody who's listening here, make sure you are understanding, you take this knowledge and apply it to the specifics of your league, because when you have the startup dynasty leagues that are also auction, that changes things dramatically also, because you have to make the decision. Do I want to put somebody in a minor league, or do I want to pay to put them on a roster and on a salary from the jump, even if it's a cheap one with the escalators you have? And you might have to wait a couple of years for that player to be, worthy of having a bench spot or a salary. It becomes a very dicey. Maybe we'll talk about that later too.
But just to be clear then, Joe, I need to be clear about one thing.
Yeah.
Based on what I was talking about there, and I felt like we were all talking about, was pure dynasty. Keep all your players.
Absolutely.
But if you're going with different setup, different league rules, that changes the equation quite a bit. But yeah, I'm thinking just pure what Eric and I, what I do my rankings on, what Eric does his rankings on, Travis,
and that's probably what most people are doing. I know in my first one though, it was run by Scott White. It's lasted 10 years. This is the first year I had to bow out of it. I'm just too busy in terms of workload. But it's gone over a decade. I've been in that league. It is so difficult, and it was 240 minor leaguers rostered on top of everybody paying a premium and putting on salary the guys, because it was a 24-team league. So you have to know the depth of your league and understand the format there that you're playing and what the value is of those prospects. Shelly, I want to start with you with this first question here about, and this might be a different name too. Which young pitcher do you think is ready to break out this year? And breakout is whatever it means to you, because that is one of those, again, another term like unprecedented, gets thrown around a lot. But breakout, I want you to tell me in your mind, whatever that is, if it means a young pitcher who's had some major league experience, ready to take that next step. If it's a minor league pitcher you think is going to really just explode onto the scene this year, whatever your definition is, give me that pitcher.
I think Quinn Priester, a pitcher for the Pirates. I think he's a righty. I think he's going to have a really, really good season. What I've been hearing, through beat writers, through MLB pipeline guys, he was so impressive in fall instructs, and he has just added weight. He's added pitches, just everything. And he's becoming that pitcher that when the Pirates drafted him like a couple years ago, what he was probably going to be like a number 1, number 2. Just what I've been hearing, everyone is just so impressed with him. So I do think that he's, excuse me, he's really going to rise up dynasty ranks, in my opinion.
Travis, how about for you? Who is that breakout pitcher, again, whatever the definition is to you, that you think you want to circle this year on the draft board?
I'm glad Shelly picked Quinn. He was who I was considering, but the other guy.
You can pick the same people. It's okay. Hey, when 2 people who are experts in this field pick the same person, I think that means a lot. So you could talk about him as well, and then give us a second one if you want some. Look, there's no bonuses, but I will give you a little extra credit, just a little.
Okay. Well, I mean, like he has added velocity too, and like Shelly said, I've heard that he's also added and had got depth, especially in that curveball, which was already a plus pitch. But the other guy is Bobby Miller for the Dodgers. This guy was a late round pick or a late first round pick in 2020. He had some relief, what some people consider relief issues, but I did not see that as a thing. He started in Louisville his career there as a reliever, and I think that kind of stigma held over when he became a starter. But his stuff, he can touch triple digits. He's got great sink. He's got an actual pitcher's profile, which I think is something that doesn't like he has an approach, which I don't think a lot of pitchers have right away. He plays low in the zone. The control is a little spotty, but what pitching prospect doesn't have spotty control? I think that from what I've been hearing from people in LA, is that this guy is impressive and that he should have been a mid-round pick and one of the better NCAA pitching prospects. So I would go with Bobby Miller.
Eric, how about for you? Who is that pitching breakout that you got your eye on this year?
I'm all over Matthew Allen from the Mets. I love Allen. Yeah, he's a great one. Third rounder back in 2019. So we haven't really seen much of him in game action, and he could have been a first rounder. There were some signability concerns that pushed him down, but the Mets got it done, kind of similarly with how they got it done with JT Ginn. But he is an absolute monster. Big, strong, durable frame, easy velocity. There's not a lot of effort in that. He just pumps in mid to upper 90s fastballs with a lot of good finishing action up in the zone. So that's easily a plus pitch, his fastball there. The curveball is a beaut, man. It's got a lot of depth to it, hard snap, late break to it. Another thing, like I mentioned with Pearson, he can land it for strikes and bury it below the zone for the swing and miss. So I love that. Another plus pitch there. And changeup too, I think is better than people give him credit for, because people look at the fastball and the curve, which are his 2 best pitches, but the changeup is very good as well. Got some good velocity separation, good fading action, a little bit of sink to it. So I think that could be an above average offering in time. And he's also very, very advanced for his age as well. He's still only 19. He'll be 20 in a couple of months, kind of early on in the season. But, good polish, kind of bulldog mentality. He'll attack hitters. Like you mentioned, Joe, all those intangibles, and Matt Manning, same thing with him.
Right.
I love pitchers that just attack. They're not afraid. Like, here's my stuff. Try to hit it. So I don't think you can. I love those types of guys, those bulldog mentalities. Matthew Allen has that on top of the polish, the command, the arsenal. It's all theirs. I think he could be a very good pitcher and a guy that you'll see really skyrocket up rankings this year once we finally have minor league action back.
Well, Ian gave you a good face on that one, so I assume you like Allen too.
Matt Allen was where I was going to go.
Great. Well, let's do it. I mean, I think consensus is tremendous. I think it speaks a lot when you get consensus in a panel like this. So go ahead, Ian.
No, the curveball is sick. I mean, it's really one of the best curveballs you're going to see. And He's big, and he's strong, and he's tough, and he's unfazed. What Shelly was talking about earlier is a lot of what I'm looking at with pitchers. I'm looking at how are you handling your business when something bad happens. So much in life is not, so much in life, bad things are going to happen. It's how you handle your bad moments. It's how you get out of it. It's how you don't blow up and give up 6 runs in an inning. And that goes back to character. And that goes back to the kind of guy that you are. And so Matt Allen fits into that category. Guy who I like quite a bit, actually, is I kind of like Asa Lacy. Now, I'm not going to draft him ahead of these other bats, but the stuff is silly, and the intention behind his intensity. I
like his mechanics too. I think Asa Lacy from a mechanical standpoint looks pretty good to me for what I saw.
Edward Cabrera, I just think has some real just beastly upside. I like his. It's just he's a big old man. Right? So I'm a fan. But yeah.
Travis, let's flip the script a little bit. We'll start with you on this one. Let's start with the breakout hitters. Again, it's whatever it means to you. If it's somebody you think is going to make a big jump in the minor leagues, or somebody who is already kind of scratched the surface of the major leagues that you think is ready to potentially break out, and or even somebody who was a rookie last year who really, because of the strange 2020, did not get a fair shake when all was said and done.
I like Greg Jones out of Tampa Bay. I think he's a phenomenal athlete. Tampa Bay has a kind of a depth everywhere, which means that they're not going to rush this guy, and he does need some time in the minors. He's got plus speed, he has potential plus power. He's shown that he can improve his approach. He's cut down swing and miss over his college career, and I think that will translate again into his major league career too. But I like Greg Jones, and I think that he can play. He's one of those guys at Tampa Bay, even if they're blocked at shortstop or second base, can move to center field and be just fine.
Eric, how about you? Breakout hitter for 2021.
I'm going to go Ismael Mena of the Cubs. Came over in the Yu Darvish deal last month. And he was a 2019 international signing, so has yet to play in any minor league action yet. But all the tools are there. He's got plus to double plus speed. He's highly athletic, very strong too. There was reports that he added some bulk and that power was ticking up at the alt site last year. And he was already, flashing above average raw power. So right around plus power there. So the big power speed, kind of threat there. But with any of the younger international players, or even any young players in general that we don't have a lot of game action on, with these international guys, all we really have to see when they get signed are those videos on Twitter where they're hitting on a backfield in the Dominican Republic or Venezuela or Cuba somewhere. So the hit tool, it's hard to grade. I actually try not to grade the hit tool. That's something you see in game action. So we'll see how he handles minor league pitching this year once he does get into game action. But the power and the speed, the frame, it's all there. So I think he could be a monster if the hit tool develops.
Shelly, who's your breakout hitter that you're looking at in 21?
I don't know. I have two.
You can name them both. You don't have to choose. They could be like your children. That's okay. You can love them both.
No, I'll choose one. It's an outfielder in the national system, Jeremy De La Rosa. He's really young. I think he just turned 20. He spent some time stateside back in 19. I'm trying to get my years straight.
Well, look, in all fairness, 2020 was a long one, so
it's hard to do
felt
these
like
days.
5 years. Yeah. Everybody.
Yeah, but this kid, he's a really, really good hitter. He has a good bat speed, bat control. He plays center field. He probably will be able to stick there. I've read some reports that he's added like a little bit of muscle, so maybe he'll get to some more power. But there's a guy who's going to be able to stick at center, can hit, so he's got a pretty good average and maybe above average power, maybe. Mm-hmm. And then in the national system, it's not that great. So I mean, and I'm just trying to be nice there. So I do think that he will probably move pretty quickly as well.
All right, Ian Kahn.
A couple of guys I kind of like are Josh Lowe. I like the speed. It's always a year on, year off, but those 38 stolen bases in 2019 made a mark for me. Carson Tucker in Cleveland is someone who excites me. But the guy who I sort of tried to go and get everywhere in the offseason was after I spoke to Brian Walton, who does the Cardinals. I'm in a league with him, and I was calling him. I was like, tell me stuff. Come on, tell me some stuff. And he said, the guy you want is Nolan Gorman. And I said, really? Huh? And he said, yeah, that's why they didn't sign Colton Wong. Is because I think they like him so much. And then Arenado got traded. I was like, what the heck? And then I was like, wait a minute, they're going to move him to second base. They're going to move there. And then just came reports that he is going to move to second base. And so it was like, yeah, good. All right. So I still think Nolan Gorman, I know there's a lot of swing and miss in the game, right. But I also
seems like less of an issue nowadays.
Yeah. So Nolan, those three guys for me.
Yeah. You know what I love? I love when one of you brings up a name and I watch the rest of the boxes when they go, yeah, or somebody smile. It's my favorite thing. So if you go back and never watch this or just continue to watch here, when somebody mentions other pick, you see, they make a face. That's telling you something. Again, once pay attention to these things. So everybody in fantasy is looking to buy low, and certainly in prospects and dynasty, that is a great opportunity here. So let's start with you on this one, Eric, if we may. the buy low prospect, and it doesn't have to be a hitter, pitch, whatever you think is the most appropriate, or a name or two that you've got your eye on, whether it be a down year, whether it be 2020 impact, for whatever reason, you think there's an opportunity to buy low in a keeper or dynasty format on a younger player.
Forrest Whitley, hands down for me.
Nice.
The stuff.
See, there it was. In case you were watching, see, they all did it. They all went, yeah, it's good.
People tend to forget that before Mackenzie Gore kind of took that threshold as top pitching prospect in the game, 2019, and now Sixto's up there as well. The dude was Forrest Whitley, and I still think that in terms of this pure upside, if I can take all the pitching prospects, rank them by just strictly upside, get rid of all the other crap, it's Gore and it's Whitley. Those are the top two, and Whitley might even have more upside than Gore. He's got 4+ pitches potentially. Gore Schmore. Okay, Nick, Gore Schmore. But Whitley, obviously, there's a lot of issues going on there. Obviously, there's a lot of risks there. The command, they were taking him with his mechanics, with his arm slot, and things kind of just got awry in 2019. Saw him out I didn't see him personally, but he was out the Arizona Fall League 2019. Looked better. Obviously, it was only like 20 or so innings, so take that with a grain of salt. But the upside is just so freaking high with him that it looks like he's gonna be back on the mound this year. I've seen some video. He looked really good. Looks very strong. So the upside is definitely worth buying right now, because if he can get it fixed again, and you got him for 80 cents on the dollar, you're gonna have an absolute steal of an investment there.
Ian, let's go to you now for maybe a potential buy low candidate in those keeper dynasty formats.
Kind of like that on Forrest Whitley. I really did, especially in a buy low situation, because I mean he's about as low as you're going to get him. So it's an awkward thing, but O'Neal Cruz is pretty good buy low right now because of his situation. With what happened to him back home, but he's still got a lot of upside as a ball player. He's going to have a lot of opportunity in Pittsburgh. There was another guy, and actually, when I did my original, who do I want here? It was Nolan Gorman, because I think that he's on lists. I mean, he's in the lower part of the top 100,
right? Because of the swing and miss, probably. Yeah, that's partial.
And we haven't seen, but the word is that the Cardinals love him, so that moves him up for me. I like guys. I really do like guys that teams show that investment in and that they like. So those would be mine.
Shelly, you have any buy lows for folks out there?
I guess I could go the easy route and just say Joe Adele. Yes, he failed miserably, but he was not ready. Even going prior to last season, I was like, I'm not going to draft him at all. He is not ready. And he showed that he was not ready. But yeah, he's probably going to spend most, if not all of the, 2021 season in the minors. And if someone in your league believes Joe Adele is like the 2020 version, come on. I will take your Joe Adele. I'll take your Joe Adele for whatever.
I'll take your Joe Adele from you. I like that.
He was traded in almost every dynasty league I'm in.
Wow.
This offseason, and I bought him in
everywhere.
No, I didn't get him everywhere, but I bought him. I got him in one and talked about him in all.
Oh wow, interesting. Travis, how about for you? Is there a name out there for a buy low for you?
I mentioned him a little bit before. That's Hunter Green. I think that
for sure.
I think the upside, if we're talking like Eric talked about with Whitley, Green's got just about as high as upside as you can get. I mean, he obviously doesn't have the 4 or 5 pitches that Whitley has, but that velocity along with that athleticism, and he's also got a decent slider too. Just what he has to do to become an effective pitcher, I think, is certainly capable within his physical tool set for sure.
All right, let's have some fun. This question's not on the docket, so I want to have some fun here. Let's give me your most overrated prospect, because everybody gets talked about, and who is it you're just not feeling? You know what? Because as much as we all talk about who we like, I think it's equally important and not discussed enough of players. We're like, you know what? I see failure here. I see trouble here. I see mechanical issues, whatever it might be. And I know I'm kind of throwing this on you, but again, we're coming towards the end of our hour, so I figured to have some fun there. Is there somebody for you, Eric? I can start with you because God knows, you and I've worked a ton together, so I can put this kind of pressure on you. You still have to work for me for the Black Book anyway, so I'm gonna go and put the pressure on you. And by the way, if you haven't already, go get the Fantasy Black Book, because all of Eric's top 100 prospects are in there. The write-ups are phenomenal. So please go out there and support great writers who work for me too, like this guy, Eric Cross. So Eric, who is the guy that you're like, No, yeah, I'm not feeling it. He's dead to me. I'm just not going to go there.
Ronnie Mauricio, and if my podcast co-host Chris Clegg is watching, he'll appreciate this because he's even lower on Mauricio than I am, which I didn't think was possible. Mauricio, I'm not saying he's a bad prospect at all. We kind of got to remember that.
Well, it's not about bad. It's almost about like you don't like where other people have him valued. You don't see that value. I think that's probably the fairer thing. But let's call them you don't like because it's more fun.
Yeah, exactly. Everyone's like, "Oh, Eric hates Ronnie Mauricio." That's all the takeaway that everyone.
Actually, that's what someone just tweeted. I see it right here. Eric hates Ronnie Mauricio. What's his problem? I just saw it. So
yeah. But with Mauricio, there's some tools there, but I think people think the power is really going to trend up. I just don't see it, and I give him kind of a pass. He's been young for every level, so I got to remember that. But I just haven't seen the power. The frame he hasn't really added a lot of bulk to that frame. He's still very slight frame. I think he can get to around average power, but I think a lot of the people that have him ranked, up near top 50, and he's more in like the 100 to 110 range for me, or people think he's got to get to that plus power. I just don't see it. Plus, he's not a big, speed guy. He's maybe average speed at best. So if we're looking at average power, average speed, maybe average hit tool, I just don't see something that's going to vault him to a standout fantasy player where he could be solid across the board. And be definitely fantasy relevant down the road, but I just don't see star potential like others do.
All right, Shelly, who are you out on that everybody else seems to like?
Drew Waters. He is an outfielder for the Braves. It's basically because he can't hit lefties. And
it's a good problem. It's a problem.
It's platoon splits. I mean, yeah, I like to see that he was like running in the minors and he had some power. But if you have just the massive platoon splits that Waters has, I just don't. He could easily be platoons. So that's kind of a guy that I'm just going to back away from.
That's fair. I mean, I think about Jake Lamb's struggles always, and everyone waiting for that to turn around. Heck, even in the beginning of Mike Moustakas' career, that was a knock on him. Some players fixed that. Moustakas was a guy who did, and look what kind of player he became, but not everybody does fix that. It's a great point there. Ian, how about for you? Who are you out on? Everybody else is in on.
It's not that I'm out on Randy Arozarena. I'm not. I just like the price to sell on Randy Arozarena more.
I agree. It's never higher. Sure.
So I like that. I'm a little nervous. I'm not out on this guy, but I'm a little nervous about Jazz Chisholm and watching Zach Gallen pitch. As James Anderson and I just started and we're actually on the clock right now. So I'm going to have to, James Anderson, we're doing a 400 DC. And so we picked Zach Gallen in the third round because James is a Zach Gallen like fanatic and loves him to life. And I just went, damn, man, Jazz Chisholm better grow up and quick because Zach Gallen is a beast.
He is.
My God, what a beast. So I'd say Arozarena because of the price, and Chisholm, I'm a little bit worried about the hit tool. That's it.
I want to say in the labor draft I was in this past week, somebody actually took him as their ace. I mean, that is amazing. Like, and probably rightfully so. He was that good. And I heard my co-host Craig Mish talk about him for a year leading up to all this that everybody saw. So I had to listen to that. And guess what? He was absolutely right. Travis, how about you? Who are you out on that everybody else seems to be in love with? And don't say me, because that's the wrong answer.
Well, now I got nothing. Scooball. I think there's a love fest right now with Scooball. Let me just say, I really want that dude to succeed, but I just don't see the combination of lack of control and no third pitch as being a success. Like, I think that he's the type of guy that comes in and can be great for short stretches until teams watch tape on him and realize it's basically a fastball, a rise fastball and a curveball or a slider, and that's it. You know what I mean? Like, he looks to me like he's a reliever that can last a few more innings than a reliever. I'd say he'd be the one guy that if I had him in leagues, I'd be selling him right now because I don't think the price is ever going to be higher.
Yeah, it's a great one. These are all great names, and we want to remind everybody to support PitchCon. Go to go.rallyup.com/PitchCon to donate, and we're trying to raise money for Feeding America. It's a great cause here. We're talking great baseball. Nick has done such a tremendous job. It takes so much work to set this up and to have all of this run and to get everybody to donate their time, and we're all donating our time, and we want you to help donate some money to this great cause. You see all kinds of impact from 2020. You see some of the weather issues going on places. Feeding America is a great organization that's going to help a lot of those people. So go to go.rallyup.com/PitchCon. It's on the bottom there. You can see it scrolling, so I don't have to keep telling it to you every 5 seconds. But go and help somebody else. Real fun, too. Let's have a little more fun here to close out this hour with everybody. Paul Sporer and I always used to have a running joke. There was always that one prospect or player that you just couldn't quit no matter how many organizations he played for, no matter what happened. You're just like, no, it's going to happen someday. And I've been burned twice now in the last couple of years. I remember Jorge Solaire, the first year I was out finally on Jorge Solaire. He had 50 home runs. And Teoscar Hernandez, last year was the first year I had no shares. And I was just like, I can't do this anymore. It's like an abusive relationship. I just have to leave it, walk away. And of course, he has his best year. So who is it for you? Is there somebody for you that has burned you or that you keep going back to? Shelly, maybe we'll start with you with this one. Is there, or maybe just a prospect that you love that it just never happened? Paul and I always used to joke about Matt Moore. It's like, this will be the year. It's going to be Matt Moore year.
This will be the year.
This will be the year. This is going to be, yeah. Thank you, Ian. I appreciate that. So, Shelly, do you have one that's like the prospect that's haunted you in your lifetime that you just wanted to happen, and for whatever reason, it just never happened for that guy?
I was the biggest Lucas Giolito fan for years, right? I used to write about the Washington Nationals prospect. So I always just fell in love with just all of his stuff. And I just never thought it was going to work. I finally sell. And what does he do? He goes back to his high school pitching coach, gets back into his groove, and now he's Geodude. So, yeah.
See, and it's so funny because we all talk about it like it's some sort of like ex-boyfriend or girlfriend that we're just like, oh, I don't understand. Like, what happened? What went wrong? Eric, do you have that one prospect that burned you, or that either like you finally got out and they became good, or they were just never good and you just felt like you're just banging your head against the wall for years and you didn't know why?
So my pick here fits all that criteria, but it's someone I'm still in on.
Oh no, we gotta have an intervention here with Cross. All right,
and I might be the only one left in the industry that's still in on him, and people are gonna hate the team he plays for. But I am gonna die alone on this Garrett Hampson hill.
All right, hey,
here we go.
I will die alone on this hill.
You're not alone. You're not.
Hey, I just took him in a draft the other night, real late. He plays different positions. Let's see what happens here.
And when he's a top 100 pick next year, everyone can thank me at that time. I saw Hampson a good amount in Double-A. When he down in the Eastern League, is the Rockies team. Hartford comes up here, my neck of the woods a lot. I love the contact skills. I love the on-base skills. He can get on base, the speed. I still think he's the best option to lead off in that system. I think he's a better leadoff type of hitter than Raimel Tapia is, because Tapia is a little too aggressive for my liking, even though I do like Tapia. But I will die on that Garrett Hampson hill. I still think the potential is there. So he's another buy low in Dynasty Leagues if you have to. But yeah, Garrett Hampson's that guy for me.
Travis, what hill did you die on, or you're still willing to die on, where it's like fetch, no matter how much you want it to happen, just never going to happen?
Man, Gordon Beckham killed me like.
Oh, that's a great one. Oh, Gordon Beckham is a great one. That's a great name. I love that.
He was everything I loved in a prospect.
Like Brandon Wood. Remember that guy too?
Yeah. God, he was so good in college. I remember just watching him, just being like, this guy is going to be the next best. Like, whether it was shortstop or second base, probably second baseman. Right. And then it was just killed me every year. I remember 5 or 6 years in a row, I'm just like, people were just like, and when I drafted him, they're like, why are you even drafting him? Nobody, you can just pick him up later. Nobody's going to draft this guy. And I was just like, I got to draft him. I got to show that how much I love Gordon Beckham. And I still love him.
Anybody who's got like an old Gordon Beckham card sitting around, please take a screenshot of it and send it to Travis on Twitter, please. It's just brilliant. Ian, how about you? Who's the prospect that burns you, or that you just still can't give up on no matter how much they disappoint you?
I mean, I guess this is, I'm not sure this is a good answer, but the guy who I just keep paying for and buying in every dynasty league that I can buy, and he's going to keep getting hurt and keep breaking his leg and keep doing this and keep doing that, and then I'm going to buy him in another couple of leagues, and I'm going to say I'll take him there.
It sounds like it qualifies.
It's Aaron Judge, but I mean, he did pay off. He has paid off, but I won't stop. I just won't stop. I can't stop. Won't stop. I'll trade. I'm a sucker. I'll do it. Go ahead, give it to me. I know
it's hard not to buy this year. I find myself buying this year in the 4th round. I mean, geez, you're going to give me somebody like that in the 4th round. And you can see, like, it's by the time we get closer to draft season in its peak, it's going to keep going up.
It's a crappy answer. It's a crappy answer compared to everybody. Everyone else had
did you have somebody else that you were like, oh, that guy's going to be like,
I know. It's just, I mean, but I call myself the loser on that one by far because I just picked out a guy who came in second in the MVP.
Look, in all fairness, it's really,
Gordon Beckham is like, that's the answer.
Gordon Beckham is,
that was the best answer.
Might be the poster child for that.
Yeah, so Travis, I take a pass. It's a bad, Yankee
Travis
answer.
Nailed that one. All right, I assume here.
I'm glad I have the best ex. That's great.
You do have by far the best.
You have the hottest ex of this whole group. There's no doubt about that. Oh my goodness!
I think it's screw time.
As we're waiting for Nick, I just want to go around real quick. Ian, we'll start with you, where everybody can find you, and kind of wrap this up real quick because Nick obviously is saying, "Hey, he's playing the music." You know, Ian, at the award shows. So, Ian, we'll start with you. We'll go around here, then to Shelly and Eric and Travis, where they can find you and follow you on Twitter and everything else.
Under the Radar Tuesdays on the Athletic Fantasy Baseball podcast, and my Dynasty rankings at the Athletic are coming out pretty soon. So
there you go.
Looking forward to it.
Shelly.
I just basically just follow my Twitter. It's down there on the screen. I promote there. So, but I write everywhere. And I just love baseball. And I will talk about baseball, whether it's on Twitter, podcast, just anything. I will just talk.
Eric.
You can find me at EricCross04 right there. Fantrax is where all my written work is, except for the wonderful Fantasy Baseball Black Book, of course. That's right behind Joe Pisapia there. And then my 2 podcasts, the 5-Tool Podcast and the Fantrax Prospect Tool Shed.
All right, Travis, you're up.
I didn't put my Twitter on there, but it's at Sheer Travis.
It's at Gordon Beckham is hot. Yeah. 27, I believe. That's the official Twitter head.
It's at Sheer Travis. You can find me there. And I love talking baseball too. If my kids aren't yelling at me, I'll be happy to respond to you.
Nick, thank you very much for giving us this platform, and we're going to kick it back to you. Thank you, again, go check everybody out, go donate and help some folks there. And Nick, great job by you running this thing. And what a lovely Brady Bunch moment we have here, the 6 of us. This is so nice. I want to look up at Eric and over there at Ian and just give my finger here to you know.
You made my job so easy. You just did everything I was going to do. This is fantastic. That was a wonderful panel. And I got to say, I'm just so happy Lucas Giolito has arrived as well, Shelly. It's so great. So great. He finally fixed his arm circle. But really, thank you guys so much for this fantastic panel. Really, thank you so much for being a part of PitchCon.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, Nick, for having us.
Take care, guys.
Take care.